Hello.
How are we doing? Another week, another video.
It's about Foxton Canal Museum, which you can see behind us on the locks.
Dun, dun, dun.
We're just going to go in there and have a look around.
And then, sorry.
They do a free tour of the caissons that used to take the boats up and down.
Specific days.
So we're going to do the tour and bring you that.
Cool. As you can see, we're right on. It's right on the flight of the locks, Foxton locks. Bless you. Is it 10 locks, 8 locks?
10 with a gap in the middle for boats to pass.
There you go. And there's
two staircases of 5.
There's 2 further up. So you've got 8 below us and then 2 above us. We'll see it all in a bit. Push that button, ring that bell. It's free to you, the world, and everybody here at Foxton Locks. And we'll see you the other side. See what we learn today.
Here we are in Foxton Canal Museum, and there's a beautiful display of historic canal art in here. The oldest water cans they've got are these 2 on the end here. They date from 1878 to 1957, and these are painted by Bill Hodgson. And then this one here is painted by Ron Huff, as is this stool. Like I say, huge collection of canal art. It's absolutely stunning. Some dippers there. There's a board off the front of a boat there. So on the other end of the cabinet is motto ware, also known as Measham ware, which were made in Derbyshire. We've actually got a teapot and a jug of this on our boat as well that my auntie gave us. There's boat women's bonnets. They date back to 1900. And some lace plates. And then for me, today's lesson is about tunnel brushes. So because there used to be such soot build-up in the tunnels, these brushes were used to clear it. And there was obviously a lot of smoke coming off of them as they went through the tunnels, and the soot build-up. The brickwork was a problem. So yeah, I used to use these brushes to brush the tunnels. And then there's a boat here called Foxglove, which has never actually been in the water. It was built in 1976 when there was a drought and the canal was dry, and she became a shop with the family camping out in the back cabin. And then she was gifted to the museum when it opened in 1989. So I'll show you as best I can inside the cabin. There's the stove. I think we can get in from the other end, so I'll go around the other side and we'll get inside. She's still got her ellum in place, and the ellums were removable, and before boats had engines they'd get moved from one end of the boat to the other to go in the opposite direction to save them having to turn them around. So yes, here we are, we can get into the back cabin. So it is done out traditionally. It's got crocheted bunting around it. It's very low. And then that would be a table that would come down. And there's the other end that I showed you with the stove in it. The tour that we're going to do shortly is of the inclined plane, which, as you can see from there, was opened from 1900 to 1911 to transport the boats up the hill. Model here of what the incline looks like. So the boats went into the caisson at the bottom here, and then were pulled hydraulically up the slope and then back onto the canal at the top. Absolutely ingenious for when it was back at the beginning of the 20th century, the design. There had been hopes they would do the same at Watford, but that got shelved and narrow locks were rebuilt there instead. So a bit of a throwback and a connection to last week's video with some information here as to why the original Market Harbour Festival and Rally of Boats was so successful in 1950, and a lot of it was off the back of the film Painted Boats, which was released in 1945. There was also Tom Rolt's book Painted Boats was released in 1944, which so the interest in canals had really started to get going then, which contributed to the success of the festival. So as you know from last week's video, we were here for the 75th celebration of the festival last weekend. There was 130 boats here at the original festival. There was many types of boats, different types of cruises. Some were home built, some came by canoe. Sea cadets came from Northampton and they poled and rowed a lifeboat from Northampton to get down here. And it was the first large-scale inland waterways event to be held in the UK. It was held jointly between Inland Waterways Association and the Market Harbour Urban District Council. It was a week-long event that had about 40,000 visitors, which for back in the 50s was absolutely huge, as Market Harbour's population at the time was only just over 40,000. And you can see from that photograph there the number of people lining the canal side. There's the Ovaltine boat there, that's actually down at Rickmansworth now. When looking at the list of boats that attended the original Harbour Festival, I discovered my auntie's boat Beatrice was there, which was really nice to know.
3 ton of coal is going into that, through that door every day in order to keep the boilers up to steam. Essentially they could have gone to electricity. It was possible, but this is a coal carrying canal, so it makes sense to use coal. On top of this building, which is something we would like to build as a trust, there's another building. So let's take about the same height as this one, slightly lower. Inside that building is the steam engine, which is quite a small steam engine, and the cable drum. The weight of the cable drum is on the bank, so it's off centre. It's not sitting squarely on top of this building. It's about halfway across and then going onto the bank itself, which leaves a tower in this near corner, which is the accumulator tower. And the accumulator tower is there to build the hydraulic pressure needed to open the gates and close the gates. And if I go there, so we're standing on that corner there at the moment. There are the 10 staircase locks there, each with its own pond going down, but you can see how much this cuts right across the old design of the locks. So the inclined plane now is a complete upgrade. The idea is to allow these to decay, to have no further use of them. They cut this lower dock, they build the inclined plane, which is a rise of 73 feet, the same as the rise from there to Top Lock. And they also build this canal which comes around the edge, which reconnects half a mile down Canal. So the route now is, if you're coming in from Leicester or from Market Harbour, most will come from Leicester, into the lower dock, up and out, vice versa coming from London the other way. And sitting on here, you've got your 2 caissons that are traversing, going up and down this slope. This is the level of water. As we go onto the inclined plane, you'll drop down to ground level. So just like any archaeological presentation, it's much harder to appreciate the height of things when all you've got is the groundings. But this is the level of the canal. So again, we've got the boats coming in from London in that direction, but out from Leicester in that direction. This was all dug by the Foxton Incline Plain Trust in 1980 when this area they wanted to work with it. This had filled up completely, so the trust, members of which I wasn't one at that time, did a huge amount of work up here, relining this canal so it could be represented as it is. Currently, it's a lovely nature reserve, as you can see. It's well worth just coming up here and looking. It's full of fish. It's got all sorts of things here. Yeah, it's a good place for sandwiches. We'll walk this. So again, getting your eye in, we've got a boat coming in at that level, that top level. So it's coming right across here. Its base is at the top of that boat. And here we can see, let's just take the stones. There's one block here, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Those blocks are supporting the dock that's coming across. So we've got our sort of metal Meccano dock going across at quite a height. It's being supported by those. We can see 4 piles of stones going across. Because the cables on this side, we've got our pulley wheels along here, are going underneath. The cables have got to go underneath that dock. So that's why it's raised by those stones. Let's go to the edge. You've got a caisson sitting here, almost horizontal, almost on the flat, and you've got one stuck in the water down there, not really wanting to move. Using a funicular, when they're working up and down the cliffs, they fill this one with water, the base of it water, and that's enough to bring it to change places. But here, I don't know what the dynamics would be, but having the massive 230 tons sitting on the horizontal and another one down there, the only way you can get it out is with steam. And that's the only purpose of the steam. That's all they need it for, is to get the thing moving. Once it gets past that point there, then they're going to move on their own. And that's why he's able to get away with quite a small steam engine. However, it's still bringing in 3 tons of coal all the time. So there's a cost benefit on that. Essentially, that's one reason why after 10 years they close it down, because there's this constant cost of 3 ton of coal being paid to keep the steam going. If it had been done with electricity, obviously switch on, switch off, but they didn't. They chose coal for good reasons. 73 feet from bottom to top, one in force halfway down, one caisson coming up the slope, one going down on the other side, and vice versa. We're a balanced pair. Due to Archimedes' principle, which means that when you get into your bath, you displace your weight in water. The caissons, it doesn't matter whether they've got no boats, one boat, or 2 boats in there, all going to weigh approximately the same. The major difference would be if the levels in the canal up here were different to the levels down there. The water level could cause an issue, but the caissons themselves weigh the same. You're looking at about 230 tons of craft coming up. And you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of tracks, so that's the full width of this is one caisson coming up. And you see it's identical on the other side. Okay. You've got 2 caissons then. When they're in the middle journey, when they're on the slope halfway down, they're pretty well balanced. They're working like a funicular railway, going up and down your cliff. Once they're in balance, they will move without any extra power essentially. It may need a little bit because of friction, but not a lot. So essentially this is a free moving balanced pair going up and down the slope. Gordon Cale Thomas, however, wants to achieve a few things through his design, which he does very well. He wants it to be efficient. He wants the boats to be floating in the caissons so that they can immediately travel out onto the canal. He's therefore got on the left-hand side, let's take it this way around, you've got the water at the bottom, and the caisson is going to go into that water. Once it's in the water, then it will open the gates and the boats come out. But you've got an engineering problem that he's got to solve now, because, as you know, when you get into the swimming pool, someone can carry you around the swimming pool very easily, but they can't carry you outside. That's up thrust. So the water is supporting the caisson. Now that's going to have an effect here as well, because as that caisson is going into the water, it's going to be supported. which means that it's not going to have the balancing power, let's call it, to bring this caisson to the top of the slope. You can see what he does, because where we're standing, we've moved from a slope, which is the gradient is fairly constant, to a curved top. As that caisson is going deeper and deeper into the water down there, the gradient here is reducing and reducing and reducing until it's almost horizontal. So that's the solution he's putting in. He's putting a curved top to his slope to compensate for the caisson going in there. Take that to be the cross-section of a caisson. The wheels lower down the slope obviously need to be lower down. These are the front wheels. He needs to keep the caisson horizontal because he doesn't want the boat slipping out or water to come pouring out. You've got the potential of probably not the boat pouring out, but a lot of the water pouring out. The only thing you can do is you've got to find a way of dropping the back wheels down, and that's what he's doing here. So here you can see the lower kit at this end. The caissons are built with having 2 wheels at the back and 4 wheels at the front. So as the caisson's going into the water there, we're beginning to transition into this concrete area here. The back wheels are dropping down, the 2 wheels at the back are dropping down into this gully here, but it's got 4 wheels, and so the 4 wheels are here, still on rails, but also outside on the slope itself. So the 4 wheels are across here. As it's going into this area, the front wheels stay up on the top slope, the outer wheels, the inner ones are slowly dropping down. So you can now imagine there is the back wheels of the caisson here, the front wheels are at that end. So look in that direction, you've got to zip through, remember we're so much higher than we are standing at the moment, and they can go off towards London in that direction. Right then, 1900, 10th of July it opens, closes in 1910. Financially they've struggled. It doesn't bring the trade back as they had been assured it would by Fellows Clayton Morton. And so they decide to, and I'd love to have been at that meeting where, having spent, I think it was £3,000 on it, I think it was, or was it £30,000, spent a lot of money in its construction, they make the decision that they're going to mothball this. At the same time, looking for efficiency, they reopen the locks. So if you go back to the locks when you're walking down, you'll see a date stone on each lock, 1909, 1910, 1911. That tells you at what point they reset those locks. We've got photos that show they were in a fairly bad condition because after 10 years they've never been used. So that's why they were all reset as they are now. So many people leave this site thinking, oh, there's a date stone, that's when they were built. No, you've got to go back another 100 years to when they were actually first constructed. The Grand Union Canal Company decide to do 2 things at that point. They go cross over to what's called the flyboat system, which meant 3 people, 3 men operating 2 boats, the butty boat behind the powered boat, travelling throughout the night. This wasn't open during the night time. You could use the locks at night time, so they would cycle the 3 people round the boats, and they would be non-stop taking the trade through. They also buy their own fleet of boats, so they no longer rely on Fellows Morton and Clayton, they buy their own steam-powered boats. So you've really got to the end now where horse-drawn boats are no longer being used, the family system is gone. This is about companies running their own boats. There are still some family-owned boats, but not many. During the First World War, 1914-18, this is mothballed. It's kept so that it could be used. They don't know what the outcome of the First World War, but after that it decays fairly quickly. 1920, after the First World War they're looking to sell it, but there's an awful lot of scrap metal around after the First World War. There's guns, there's tanks, all sorts of things, so the price of scrap metal drops considerably, and they keep putting off the selling of the scrap, and it keeps reducing, and in the end in 1926 they sell up for £600. Everything's taken off site. The buildings are taken off site. The metal's taken off site. It's all stripped down the slope. Barges are brought in at the bottom. And they take the metal and the bricks away from the site to the 1970s, 1980s, when the inclined plane trust are formed to try to get this working again. I actually met a chap who was a sixth former in Market Harbour in the 70s, and he was one of the first groups that came up as part of their sixth form duty to start clearing the site. So there was, around that 1970s period, there was a real excitement about getting the canals working again, so I comprehend that. 25, we're coming up to the 125th anniversary of its opening. In fact, 10th of July next month is the 125th anniversary of this first day of this operating. That's the inside of the building. So the steam engine is this little bit here. It's not much at all, it's just that bit there. And it would have been sitting across where the back of the concrete there is. You go into the museum, you look into the tunnels, which are by the wall, the left-hand wall. If you look up, you'll see bolts coming down. Essentially, they're, as you see on a lot of old buildings, these bolts that go on either side to hold the wall together. They're using the same system here. You can actually pick out the little iron rods, or big iron rods, that are coming through the concrete. Those are going all the way down through concrete, down into that tunnel, and then you'll see the bolts at the roof level of the tunnel. So they're holding this mass down, which makes a lot of sense because you've got 500 tons up here. You need to bolt this down fairly well. Here, and I show you this last picture, you can see the scene from where we're standing, which is that one. So we've got two sets of rails. I think this picture was taken slightly higher up because we're looking at the level of the water, and there's no way, if you take the top of that boat, there's no way we could see the water. So I think they were taking it from some kind of a stand. It's in the same position as the photo we looked at when we were on the bridge. So here's the end gate. There is the block over there. Here is the caisson that's come up the far slope, and you can get a sense of how tall they are, because look, there's the level of the land, the slope. That's the height at which they're coming out. That's to go off at the height where that bridge is. I normally take my eye line to. That's the level that they're coming off at. Gordon Cale Thomas makes an appearance there as the engineer. You can see an attendant in his attendant's clothing there. Here are the boxes where they could rest from the wet weather, but more importantly, on the right hand side you now have the entrance of the engine house, and you can see the cable drum just in the shadow there. Cables come out along the bank this side and along the bank that side, go around the pulley wheels, 4 go down in order that they can share the mass of the caisson, taking it up and down the slope. We want to come to, because I think it's quite an exciting area, and it tells a period of history which, although it's a period of decline for the canals, it's still a unique period where things were happening, and there are not many places where you can see the effort. We've also got the fact that we've got the Anderton boat lift just about working. We've got the Forecourt wheel, which they've really pushed on. I was talking to someone the other day about the amount of child-focused things they've got there, and they've got a lovely cafe and all that kind of things. So you've got the Forecourt wheel, you've got the Anderton boat lift, and here you've got the canal, the locks, and an inclined plane. You've got the 4 ways of getting up a hill. So it's, for me, it's quite a unique area.
We've just walked down to the bottom of the inclined plane, so you could see the moored boats at the bottom when we were stood at the top. And next to it is the car park with the existing steel wheel left in it, so we'll take you across to see that. And here's the wheel. So this is the pulley wheel that Paul talked about, which is the only one that's left. Wow, that was a really informative couple of hours.
Very much so.
Hope we've managed to pass some of the information on to you successfully.
Well worth coming and visiting. Who knows? You might learn a little bit more than what we have today.
Big thank you to Paul for the tour.
And Penny.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We'll put some links below for you, as we always do.
Aye, so push the button, ring the bell. It's free to you, the world and everybody here at the museum.